The story takes us to a fascinating city called Fitville, a place entirely built of concrete and plastic. Strangely, this city lacks trees, shrubs, and gardens, making it a completely artificial environment. The inhabitants of Fitville live in a plastic bubble, with no sign of the nature that many other cities still preserve. The lack of vegetation has led to very poor air quality, a problem that an entrepreneur named Her has decided to capitalize on. He purifies and bottles oxygen in large containers, which he then sells to the city's residents. This business has made him a wealthy man and the most powerful person in the city. Despite the severe pollution and the artificial environment, the residents seem to adapt to their situation. They buy the oxygen containers with enthusiasm and are content with their plastic city, which provides almost all the entertainment they need. The air is so polluted that any trace of nature disappeared so long ago that people no longer even remember what it was like. They have come to normalize a life with crowded parking lots, slightly radioactive water, and an extremely polluted environment. In this city lives a young man named Ted, who is in love with a girl named Audrey. Ted has made several timid attempts to approach her, but so far, he has only achieved her friendship. Audrey has painted a huge mural depicting how trees used to look in the past when they still existed in the city. She reveals to Ted that her greatest desire is to see and feel a real tree growing in her garden. In fact, she has mentioned that she would marry the person who gave her a real tree. This revelation sparks a determination in Ted's mind, who embarks on a mission to obtain a real tree. During dinner, Ted asks questions about how to obtain a real tree, but his mother dismisses the idea, saying that they have already bought a cutting-edge tree that can change colors. However, after his mother leaves, his grandmother, an elderly woman with wisdom, tells him an important secret. She reveals that there is a man known as the Once-ler who knows what happened to the trees. The problem is that this man lives on the outskirts of the city, where the air is dense and the landscape is desolate. Determined, Ted takes his vehicle and heads towards the city's edge, where a great wall divides the plastic oasis from the bleak reality outside. This departure from the city alerts Ower, the entrepreneur who has monopolized the sale of oxygen. Ower is busy listening to a business proposal to expand his empire, to sell bottled air as a new product. The idea is for the factory to produce even more pollution, which will force the citizens to buy more air, increasing Ower's wealth. This is a vicious cycle where Ower poisons people and then sells them the cure. Although this may seem like an exaggeration, there are real-life parallels, such as the privatization of water, a resource that used to flow freely but is now controlled by private companies. Entrepreneur Ower knows that Ted is planning something unusual, so he keeps a close watch on him. When Ted finally leaves the city, he encounters hell on the other side of the wall. The ground is covered with dead tree trunks. What was once a thriving forest now looks like a grim, uninhabitable cemetery. This contrast between Fitville's artificial bubble and the devastated exterior landscape illustrates how large cities often live in a bubble of ignorance, separated from the real consequences of their consumption and production. In modern metropolises, the vast amounts of waste and pollution are often hidden in the peripheries, creating a similar bubble of ignorance to that of Fitville. Waste and pollution are moved to less visible areas, preventing residents from seeing the direct damage they are causing. This extends to deforestation, mining, and oil extraction, which occur in remote places, far from the view of cities. Factory work producing goods at low cost often involves inhumane working conditions and a lack of environmental protection, an invisible cost to consumers. Ted continues on his journey, ignoring warning signs indicating imminent danger. He arrives at a tall, dirty, and old house, and upon seeing that it is the residence of the man his grandmother mentioned, he rings the doorbell. A robotic arm grabs and shakes him, and the homeowner, who never shows his face, orders him to leave. However, when the man realizes that Ted is only seeking information about the trees, his attitude changes. With sadness and regret, the man reveals that the trees are no longer around because of his actions. It is important to note that the name the Once-ler is a nickname. His real name is not mentioned because his actions were so devastating that it no longer matters who he is, but rather the impact he left. In the past, the Once-ler invented a revolutionary product. At first, it was just a dream, but he decided to leave home to make it a reality. Despite the ridicule from his family, he traveled the world in search of the perfect material for his invention, which he called fit. Eventually, he found a paradise full of furry trees called truffula trees. There were families of bears, birds, and splendid rivers full of fish. He decided that the truffula trees were ideal for his product, so he began to cut them down. The creatures of the forest protested, but the Once-ler pressed on. In response, the guardian of the forest, the Lorax, appeared and performed a ritual around the felled tree, as if it were a funeral. Lorax warned the Once-ler that if he did not leave before the sun set, all the forces of nature would curse him. Although the warning seemed mystical, things did not turn out as the Once-ler had hoped. Despite the warning, the Once-ler did not leave and continued with his destruction. Threat from Lorax, although not magical, would come true in an unexpected way. The Once-ler, ignoring the warning, decided to press on with his plan. The Once-ler tells Ted that he must return the next day to hear the rest of the story. Ted goes back home, dreaming of the day he can give Audrey a tree and receive a kiss in return. His grandmother covers for him so he can return to the forest the following day. However, when Ted sets out, he is intercepted by Oa's guards. Oa approaches to threaten him, revealing that he knows what Ted is planning and has security cameras all over the city. Oa demands that Ted stop his investigation, as a real tree would be a threat to his bottled air business. Oa represents some large corporations that use aggressive tactics to protect their products and services, including threats and harassment. Real-life examples include Robert Bylot, who faced the chemical corporation DuPont over water contamination, and Homero Gomez Gonzalez, a Mexican activist who defended the monarch butterflies and faced death threats. Ted, however, does not give up and returns to the forest to hear the continuation of the story. The Once-ler has discovered that Ted is seeking a tree for a girl, which changes his perspective. After a conversation about relationships, the Once-ler finishes his tale. After much work, the Once-ler tries to rest, but Lorax and the forest creatures enter his room, placing his bed in a river and scaring him. Although the intention was to teach a lesson, the situation spirals out of control and the Once-ler ends up on the edge of a waterfall. Lorax, not wanting to end the Once-ler's life, saves him and reminds him that everyone in the forest depends on the trees. The Once-ler finally understands the importance of the trees and promises not to cut any more. This moment reveals that the Once-ler is not inherently evil, but rather an ambitious person who, in his quest for success, lost sight of the values he once held. The next day, the Once-ler reveals to Lorax that he plans to sell his product in the nearest city. Although Lorax considers the product useless, the Once-ler is determined. Greed and indifference to environmental consequences guide him, leading to the eventual destruction of the forest. Lorax tells Ted that the moral of the story is to take care of nature and be responsible for our actions. Ted returns to Fitville, realizing that the true gift for Audrey is not a tree, but the knowledge and awareness he has gained. Although he cannot restore the trees, he decides to plant the last truffula tree in Audrey's garden and share the story of the Once-ler and Lorax with everyone. Through this act, Ted aims to raise awareness about the importance of preserving the environment and making responsible choices. Ted and Audrey's story becomes a symbol of hope for Fitville. Although the city remains a plastic bubble, Ted and Audrey begin to promote change from within, seeking to inspire others to value nature and question the system around them. This change will not be easy, but Ted and Audrey's dedication and love can make a difference. Over time, Audrey's mural transforms into a symbol of hope and change in Fitville. Fight for the environment may be long and difficult, but the impact of conscious and passionate actions can change the course of history for the better. The city, although still dominated by plastic and pollution, begins to open its eyes to the possibility of a greener future. The story of the Once-ler and Lorax becomes a lasting lesson, reminding everyone that true progress comes from harmony between humanity and nature. Through Ted and Audrey's actions, Fitville takes small steps towards reconciling with the environment. Although not everyone in the city is willing to change, the efforts and bravery of a few can inspire many. This narrative of hope and redemption shows how perseverance and love can overcome even the greatest barriers. And so, the story of Fitville continues, a testament to how awareness, love, and perseverance can transform even the most unexpected places.